And it's a sunny good afternoon from the Rolex Sydney Hobart Race Village for our afternoon report. We've now been racing for 51 hours in this, the 77th edition of the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. And it's been one of the quickest races in Sydney Hobart history. 16 boats have finished inside 2 days. Currently we have 81 yachts still at sea. There have been 8 retirements and 19 boats have finished, and most of them behind us in Kings Pier. And alongside me is the voice of the Rolex Sydney Hobart, Peter Shipway, a multiple winner, but a lot of the focus, Peter, now on the handicap situation.
Yes, good afternoon, Gordon. Good afternoon to everyone. Yes, that's the big focus, as you say. We know the line honours winners have been determined, but now it's up for grabs the Tattersall Cup, the most valued prize in Australian yachting. And at the moment, it's Celestial, the TP52 that's been strong throughout, that is the provisional leader in the clubhouse. Here's the shots earlier today coming up the river, and above her to windward is Guelo, who is currently positioned in second place provisionally, Matt Donald's boat, and Celestial skippered by the CYC Vice Commodore Sam Haynes. And you can see those conditions this morning, a few hours ago. They're absolutely fresh to frightening, the conditions as they came up the river, and it gave all the boats that came up this morning a real hammering.
Yeah, well, they had a problem there with their mainsail, but also they had an epic battle there with Guelo, the TP52s, and they were really fighting hard to stay ahead, Guelo, but in the end it looks as though it's been a possible win here for Sam Haynes.
Yes, it does. I mean, there's still a lot of the little boats still out at sea, and as you said, only 19 have finished, but I think it might be a bridge too far for most of those boats now, and I think Celestial should be reasonably confident without being overconfident. And interestingly, 6 of the first boats provisionally on Handicap now are all the TP52s, so they really hit a sweet spot in this rating rule, and it showed in this downhill race. And the only boat that broke the dominance was Sean Langman's Moneypenny, who finished at the moment in provisionally 7th.
And he is the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water point score champion, Sean Langman, in Moneypenny, so that's been a great accolade for him. But certainly we had some lively conditions. The southwest change hit Hobart earlier today, and it was wild and woolly in Storm Bay and also the Derwent. And Peter G is down in Kings Pier at the moment, embracing the atmosphere. Tell us about it, Pete.
Well, Gordon, you wouldn't have been able to stand here 5 or 6 hours ago. It was, well, blustery, I think I heard it described as, but, you know, wind gusts 70 kilometres an hour. They had to shut the Rolex Race Village for the safety of patrons. It opened up about 2:30, and now it's just ideal. The westerly breeze came in, it's dropped the temperatures to a very pleasant 22 degrees, and there's a good steady stream of punters coming down to look at the 19, soon to be 20 finishes of the 2022 Rolex Sydney Hobart. This second finger here at Kings Pier, just about full with the finishes, and soon it will be Crush joining them. You were talking about the handicap. Crush yesterday for a period was in the lead, and they're going to come across the line in 20th in terms of line honours, but down the handicap standing somewhat. And the welcome committee, though, will just be as warm as ever for Crush. They've just passed us now, and they've gone out onto the breakwater to welcome their sailors home. So a wonderful atmosphere now, and let's hope the worst of the weather is past us.
Yes, well, the people of Hobart are certainly out in force, and repeating that earlier news that just before 1 a.m. this morning, Peter G, we had a big crowd here at Kings Pier when Andrew Comanche took line honours just under 3 hours outside the race record. So the people of Hobart have responded very generously.
And the screaming and squealing that you might be able to pick up from the end of Kings Pier is from the Crush Welcome Committee. So we've got 20 officially across the line now.
Thanks very much, Pete. We'll come back to you a little later, but Peter Shipway, let's have a look at the tracker and see how things are panning out in the various divisions, because we're now getting down to the pointy end as far as the major prizes are concerned.
Yes, we are, Gordon, and we can have a look there. Firstly, at the overall handicap position. As I said earlier, Celestial provisionally. This is all provisional. Celestial first, Guelo second, and Caro third. Interestingly, Gordon, it's Celestial last year was provisionally first in this position 12 months ago, and then a protest by the race committee relegated to second place. She was penalised 40 minutes for not having a continuous radio listening watch. And Guelo, who's now second, was unfortunately retired out of the race on the first night last year with a broken forestay. And Guelo was second in 2019 to Ichiban. So Guelo repeating her success of 2019, and now Celestial has jumped up one at the moment from where she was last year. So there's some good stories there to be had, that's for sure.
And we have still, I think, 20 in the two-handed classification. How are things shaping up there?
Well, the leader in the two-handed division, as he has been most of the way, is Rupert Henry's Mistral, and that doesn't surprise anyone. He's an absolute expert in two-handed, short-handed sailing, Rupert. He's still got 133 miles to go. He's just a couple of miles ahead of Packman, and that's on Handicap. They've still got a fair battle to go to get round Tasman. They're 90 miles short of Tasman as it stands. And
how's their weather at the moment?
Tasman is moderated somewhat. The last time I looked, it was southwesterly. It was down to about 20 knots. When I say down to, it was fresh to frightening earlier in the day. Got round from the north to the northwest, and the boats that have finished have told some harrowing stories about rounding Tasman and coming across the bay and into the river. They said some of the strongest breezes they saw all race, and it was the most toughest part of the race that had really been relatively easy up till that point.
Okay, well, as we mentioned, Andrew Comanche took line honours earlier today, a triumph for John Winning Jr., and I suspect he is still pinching himself.
Yeah, it feels pretty unbelievable at the moment. It's just still sinking in. Didn't feel real till the last minute, and then now it's only just starting to settle in, but it feels amazing. Just exceptional how many people went into making this a reality, and I can't thank them enough from the bottom of my heart. The boat's awesome. I mean, everything from the design to the feel of it to the, the records that it holds. I'm just glad that we can be a part of that, and we didn't shame it, but hopefully we added to its glory.
Yes, very calm. He did a lot of talking in the early hours of the morning, and I thought he handled it superbly, as did the old man, 70-year-old John Winning Sr.
Yeah, it was a great family reunion, wasn't it? A great victory for the family, and a terrific crew, as John Winning Jr. said, aboard Andrew Comanche to get this boat home in great shape, and a really famous victory.
Well, we mentioned Celestial and Sam Haynes, and as I say, I think it's probably the quintessential bittersweet transformation in Sydney Hobart history after being penalised last year on protest. They look as though they're in the box seat now to take the race, the Tattersall Cup on Handicap. What about the crew, Peter, of Celestial and Sam Haynes?
Well, a lot of the crew from last year have remained, but he really did add some strength. Rob Greenhalgh, the English yachtsman, came aboard, and he's won this race before on Ichiban and Guacamo in 2016. He's added some real strength to the crew. Josh Jr., an outstanding New Zealand yachtsman, also came aboard. He's a part of the New Zealand Sail GP team. He's an Olympian, and those two guys, along with the regular crew. David Chapman, from a very famous Sydney yachting family. His father, Richard Chapman, former Commodore of the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron. His mother, Rennie, from the Wilmot sailing family, so really good genes there. And Jack McCartney on board, an outstanding 18-foot skiff sailor. They really complemented the rest of the crew, who must have put in a fantastic performance. And I know Sam Haynes was very highly praising all the crew that got the job done.
Yes, well, four of them of that crew competed with Sam in the J70 World Championship in Monaco just recently. So they're well travelled, they're well drilled, and they're well performed, as we saw in this year's race. And Peter, a short time ago, you caught up with Sam Haynes, who is the Vice Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia.
Well, Sam, what a difference 12 months makes. You must be elated as the provisional winner at this stage.
Oh, look, we are. It's fantastic to be in this position. It's been a long year. hopefully we can hold on to it. Obviously, there's people out there competing really hard now to try and get their results too. So I'm not banking it yet, but I'm happy that we've done as well as we have, especially against this fleet. It wasn't really hectic until just at the last bit where we got those sort of 30-knot northerlies coming down from east of Tasmania. But look, the race for me, we got out of the harbour really clean. We were the first 52-footer out of the heads, well, around the mark, turning, and I think we set up well. And from then on, we just kept in touch with everyone, and gradually, the fleet dispersed. And at one point, we were 280 miles from the finish line, and there was 4 52-footers together. And here we are today, all here in the same dock, and it could have been any of us really. But it was really tough, 40 knots or so, and gusts coming through, spin drift blowing. It was just last thing you really need. You want to go in the river and be able to feel a bit like you've put away the weather. But no, we had weather at every corner in this race.
Well, well done, fingers crossed, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, our fingers are very much crossed.
Yes, well, they were declared the provisional winner last year until those 2 protests were lodged by the race committee and also by Matt Allen and Ichiban, and with that time penalty they were relegated to second place. But it was nervous time still in that battle, Peter, with Gualo coming up the Derwent.
Yes, they always had a tick of time over Gualo. Their handicap is slightly lower, and they have lowered their handicap just that little bit from last year, which it just gave them that edge on time. But when you consider the first 4 boats on corrected time at the moment, there was only about 26 minutes between the first 4. So that's incredibly close racing, and says a lot for the handicapping system that these boats are sailing under.
Yes, well, these TP52s were pretty well inside of each other, weren't they, the whole race? And we saw a fantastic effort from the Kiwi boat, Caro.
Yeah, Caro, yes. She was on the early list of favourites. She had a very good Hamilton Island race week. She's one of the newer TP52. She was built in 2021, a boat and design, and a very good crew, like all these boats. They had top-class, world-class sailors aboard. She had Justin Ferris, Ryan Godfrey and Jules Salter aboard, all, well-renowned sailors from around the world, and Australians Will Parker and James Patterson. And here's some great shots of Caro coming across the bay, reaching across in strong winds there, and they pushed this boat very hard. They, as I said, they won the Hamilton Island race week, and they were always there or thereabouts on the handicap list.
Yes, well, Max Klink, the Swiss owner of Caro, which also represents the Cayman Islands and the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, he certainly made no bones about the quality of this fleet of 52-footers. The best in the world racing at the moment.
And she was the first to finish of the TP52s, but she had probably one of the highest ratings, just only a couple of clicks higher, as they call it, on their decimal rating, but it was enough to push her down to 3rd overall at this stage.
Well, there's a great camaraderie amongst the TP52s. Caro, Warrior 1, also from the United States, was a fierce rival. They were very close together at the finish of the race at Castres Esplanade. But let's hear now from Matt Donald, who, as you mentioned, Peter, was forced to retire last year with a broken forestay on the first night. But Gualo having that wonderful duel, up Storm Bay and the Derwent, with Celestial and Sam Haynes.
Actually helped us a little bit, that tacking duel up the river. We probably gained a bit of time on Warrior 1, probably wasn't their best mode, and managed to get over the top of them in the end, but we just couldn't get enough on Celestial to get the victory, unfortunately. At the moment, to be provisionally second, look, it's very satisfying. Awesome crew, the teamwork on board for a day and a half in those conditions, running down there, where you've really got to look after each other and work as a team.
Yes, well, certainly they had a fantastic duel, and I think Tony Kirby and Patrice was the last boat to finish inside 2 days of the 52-footers. So 19 boats finished inside 2 days, which, as I said earlier, Peter, makes it one of the quickest races on record.
Yes, when you look back just only 1 year, I mean, Blackjack, who got line on us last year, hadn't even finished by this time 12 months ago. She finished about 2 in the morning in about 10 hours' time. So you can just see how quick this race was.
And, you know, what a difference the weather front makes as well. Blackjack, which finished third across the line in the early hours this morning, was exactly 1 day slower than her winning time across the line last year. The southerly, of course, at the start of the race. This time we had the northerly.
Well, you look at the smaller divisional boats, the Division 5, that caters for all the small boats. The leader there is White Bay 6 Azuro, Shane Kern's 34-footer from Sydney. She's still got 213 miles to go, and she's 70 miles east of Eddystone Point on the northeastern tip of Tasmania. So a long haul for those boys still, and she's doing 8 knots at the moment. But tonight will be a bit tough, but tomorrow the breeze will go from the east to the northeast, so that will bring them home under Spinnaker, but it's still, they won't have enough time up their sleeve to save their handicap time on the leaders already in the clubhouse.
So we mentioned there are 8 retirements currently of the original 109 starters, but you have some good news on Caro, the 30-footer with the 2 senior female sailors. They've left Eden.
They have left Eden. They hold up there for, we believe, about 24 hours just to look at the weather and assess whether they are fit enough to go across Bass Strait. And the good news is they're started again, and they're 11 miles south of Gabo Island, and they've got 381 miles to go. You can see there at the bottom of the screen they're doing 7.4 knots at a course of 181 degrees. So 11 miles south of Gabo, so they've certainly got a lot of sailing to do. They're not even to the halfway mark of this race.
So they're taking on Bass Strait at the moment, and the prospect of some nastier conditions ahead.
Yeah, it looks as though it could be a bit tough tonight, but then it gets nice again, I think, into the east and northeast, and not too strong, so they should have a nice ride down the Tassie coast and hopefully across Storm Bay, a bit better than the leaders did today, and certainly a lot better, hopefully, up the river than was experienced by that fleet this morning. But boy, it was rough and tough out there. Whitecaps everywhere, wind everywhere. We saw No Limit come across with a tear and a mainsail just held together by the leech line. Celestial had a tear at the top of their mainsail. Whisper finished under a storm jib, so you know, a lot of damage right at the end of the race.
Let's have a look at some of the wild and woolly action on Storm Bay and also the Derwent, and it really was mayhem once those gusts came hurtling in, even over 40 knots at different points there. So all sorts of things happening in those boisterous conditions, and a bit of a seaway there as well, as far as the swell.
Yeah, well, this is Warrior 1. She's in the bay here. She's not in the river, but the west norwesterly was very squally, as westerlies tend to be. The bullets or the puffs hit, and there's a bit of a low, and the puffs hit again, and very in different directions. It's not a steady sort of breeze, but here's the real triple head rig on this Warrior 1. You can see the 3 headsails set in front of the mast. They're absolutely power reaching here. Really good speed, probably 15, 18, touching 20 knots. 2 crew on the grinders there, just trimming the sails. The helmsman trying to keep the boat on maximum speed down the waves. Up and down goes the helm to try and get the maximum speed using the waves to their advantage. You can see the 3 headsails very clearly there.
And I understand, Peter, that Crown Princess Mary of Denmark and Crown Prince Frederick and their 4 children were down around the docks this morning. They're staying at Government House here in Hobart at the moment. And Princess Mary's father was a resident here in Tasmania where she grew up.
Okay, well, here's Warrior 1 once she was in the river. She's hard on the wind. You can see the wind there whipping the whitecaps up. The sea state is down, but the chop is certainly up. Warrior 1 just tacking onto port, and you can see these bullets absolutely tipping her over at various stages. So a lot of accuracy needed by the crew in those conditions.
Well, it's certainly been a test, not only for the sailors and the boats, but also for the officials. And Peter G is now with the race director for the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia for the Rolex Sydney Hobart, Lee Goddard. So back to you, Pete.
Thanks, Gordon. Yes, look who I found wandering the docks, just like all the Hobartians and the visitors from interstate and overseas, Lee. It's well, it's given us everything. A bit over 2 days, and the race has not lacked for drama. No, look, well, first of all, it's terrific to be here and just soak up the atmosphere with all the people of Hobart, not just the people from Hobart, all the international and other visitors, etc. as well. Look, every race has its dramas. Our job as the committee is to make the race as safe as practicable, of course make it fast, maximum participation, and make it fair as well. But in terms of safety, you're always conscious that the biggest challenge is always the weather. It can be very kind to you and it can be very tough. And we've been working with the Bureau of Meteorology for the last couple of days. We knew this was coming, some yachts did get caught in Bass Strait with some pretty tough conditions over the last 12 hours. And for those who've been in Hobart, you saw it this morning. They were pretty destructive winds. And I think we're quite fortunate. There have been some withdrawals. There has been some damage to some yachts. Fortunately, there has been some injuries as well. But that's all part of offshore sailing. So look, congratulations to all the competitors. But it's been it's been tough conditions over the last 12 hours. But it looks fairer over the next 24, and looks like it'll continue to be a relatively fast race. In those conditions, there's always going to be some part of the rigging that gives way on some yachts, but you don't want to lose a rudder, and 2 yachts lost their rudders this morning. How do they get back to land? Yeah, look, and rudders are always of great concern because, of course, as soon as you lose steerage, you really lose the control of your yacht to actually to take it where it needs to be, and it could be because of the conditions. And even myself, sailing up until the start of the race, saw a number of big sunfish and other I guess water mammals. So it's always a risk when you hit something and your rudder is damaged. Generally, the team, the skipper, will go through their drills to make sure they centre it if they can, and potentially even sail with the sails and steer that way. But we always have vessels on standby, and we've had terrific support from not just the Tasmanian Police and the Marine Services up and down the coast, and also the New South Wales Police. But we have, of course, other vessels which will actually stand by other yachts to ensure the safety of the whole. It's all part of the team spirit of the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. There's obligations, but you often will find that while crews and teams are fixing their problems, other yachts will stand by and assist. But yep, obviously it's always a risk, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling when you hear that shudder and you hear a rudder going. All right, Lee, it's a team effort, and so far so good, but we've still got a bit of racing to go. I'll let you get back to your work behind the scenes. Thank you very much, and Gordon and Peter, and Peter, great commentary again, and fantastic to be here in Hobart. Cheers. Thanks, great to have you. Lee Goddard, the race director of the Rolex Sydney Hobart.
Good on you, Peter G. Yes, and Lee certainly speaks from first-hand experience as a senior naval officer. And Peter, he was aboard Moneypenny and Sean Langman when Sean first purchased the boat 5 years ago. So he's enjoyed his Sydney Hobart experience firsthand, and he's a man who's doing a fantastic job as far as the race director is concerned. So let's have one last look, Pete, at the tracker. And there are still some very well-performed boats out there that could make things interesting.
Yes, they could, and you can see the bulk of the fleet are across Bass Strait and spread down the east coast of Tasmania. There's a few still up near Flinders Island. We'll just scan up a bit and we can see the mighty Caro. There she is, right at the top of the screen, just south of Gabo Island. Those arrows show the wind direction, and as you get further south, you can see the wind direction is into the southwest, those arrows. So things are a bit tough around at Tasman Island. Antipodes is round Tasman, Denali probably the next to go round, and then the rest of the fleet spread progressively north, all on the rum line, the straight line between Sydney Heads and Tasman Island, and a couple of boats a little bit to the east, but overall it's going to be a reasonably good night. But I think tomorrow they'll be looking forward to much better conditions. And I think I just would like to mention Quest, who looks provisionally fifth. This boat has won the race twice, and Michael Green, I think 42 Hobart races, Craig Neal's yacht. They've done a mighty job as well, and I think she's had a second, a third, and a couple of wins. She won once as Balance when Paul Clitheroe chartered the boat. Bob Steele had her as Quest, so she again has proved a very consistent boat in this race. But at the moment, all the honours look to be with Celestial, Guaylo, Caro, Warrior One and Quest, but 24 hours time I think we'll know for sure who is crowned the champion and will take home the Tattersall Cup for 12 months.
So Peter, we've been racing now for 2 days, 3.5 hours in this 77th Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Repeating that 81 yachts are still at sea. We've had 8 retirements and 19 of the 109 original starters have finished. So please keep in touch with the Rolex Sydney Hobart website, our Facebook page and our digital channels for all the latest information on the Rolex Sydney Hobart for 2022. That just about takes us out now from the Rolex Race Village here in Hobart. It's been another eventful day, and repeating that earlier news that Andrew Comanche just before 1 a.m. this morning took line honours for the 4th time, just under 3 hours outside her race record. We'll be back at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow morning. On behalf of Peter Shipway, we'll sign off now from the Hobart Race Village.